Alright, what is up guys? For this video we're going to be doing a pretty important suspension upgrade to the truck that'll improve the handling quite a bit, and it's something that shouldn't have even been an option on these trucks. It should have been standard, but it was an option and my truck doesn't have it. And that one thing is a front sway bar. This truck has no sway bar whatsoever on it. No front, no rear, nothing. No sway bar. Which is sad because these trucks were kind of praised, I guess, for their car-like handling because it's got rack and pinion front steering on it, which is awesome. And then to go to all that trouble to put rack and pinion steering on something to make it handle good and then not even put a front sway bar on it, that's pretty sad. Even like the cheapest economy cars came standard with at least front sway bars. Like your Geos and your Festivans and stuff, like they came with front sway bars and they were older than this truck. At least the Festivas were, which is really sad for anything in the 90s that, you know, to not have a front sway bar on it is pretty sad. I don't know why they didn't do it. I could go on a whole rant for probably a long time on the whole, you know, them not putting a front sway bar on this thing standard, but I'm not going to. So here's what I've got. This is just a Junkyard sway bar. I went and pulled it on Sunday, and I've got in my hand two front end links because the end links were shot and rusted up, and I had to break them to get them off. And I've also probably going to have to go cut them out of the actual sway bar to get the links off. The bushings themselves up here are good. Brackets, of course, are good, so I'm just going to use them. I just got the two new end links because I didn't have any, and I'm going to see what kind of handling improvement I get out of that. I've already ordered this energy suspension. I believe it's energy suspension. I can't remember now. It's either energy or prothane. I already ordered the polyurethane bushings for the sway bar and end links with the sway bar, so we'll be able to see what the difference is between like brand new OEM bushings and end links compared to like prothane ones or something polyurethane. See if there's actually much of a difference that I'll notice. Because if I notice it in this, you're going to notice it in just about anything else. It'll be, I mean, these bushings are still pretty tight actually. They're in good shape. So I'm not really worried about that throwing off my test, but the end links, definitely, they always go bad on these. The bushings don't last very long. They're just cheap rubber. So there's those. This truck should, I know it has the holes in the control arms for the front end links to go into, and it also has holes for the OEM bolts to go into, but I don't know if they're threaded or not. So I'm just going to pop the hood open and see if there is threads. I would assume there was, because this was an option that dealers were able to install for you as well. So if you ordered a truck, like a base model truck, and you wanted to add a sway bar to it, they could bolt them on at the dealerships. So we're just going to open it up. I saved all the OEM bolts. They're in one of these boxes. Maybe it's in this one. I believe it's in this one because that's the receipt from the Junkyard. There we go. Got all these bolts in here, and I picked something else up while I was there, and I'll show it, that other item, to you guys as well, because I know a lot of you have either been around since the green Dakota, or you are just interested in this build, and you've got a lot. I know a lot of people have said they have Dakotas and they want to do the same basically thing to their trucks, and this right here is a factory EGR block off. This truck, I don't know if this truck actually has the EGR or not, but if it does, you can go pull this off of a 96 and I think 95 trucks as well. They didn't have EGR, so they come with just a factory plate. You can get the plate, and this bolt right here goes to it, and this bolt, and just get a new gasket for it. Or maybe, I think they all have metal gaskets, so you can probably reuse it and just bolt that on, and boom, you don't have EGR. That's important when you're boosted, and of course EGR is basically like breathing in your own fart to save the environment, even though it really doesn't do much. But it was an attempt to reduce emissions. Very 80s, and some of it carried off into the 90s as well. So really easy, really cheap. Most of the time the junkyards will just let you take it, so it's free. I don't know if anybody even makes an aftermarket EGR block off because they're so common. I know 96s have the block off. I don't know about 95s. I think the 95s have the block off as well. So quick tip for you guys, that's an easy power upgrade for anybody who's even staying NA. Delete the EGR, there you go. Or if your EGR is bad and it's leaking exhaust or leaking vacuum or something, quick, easy mod, boom, there you go. I gotta get the hood open and see if there is bolt holes so I can test the bolts and see that the bolt holes are gonna be rusty, so I'm gonna have to soak them in penetrant. But hopefully they're threaded and I can put the bolts in, and then I'll get the sway bar down there. I need to get these end links out, and then this will be really easy and really cheap. I think the sway bar was like $20, so a little bit over $20. Really easy, really cheap, OEM suspension upgrade. I'm really looking forward to seeing how well this thing handles with that on there. Alright, so if you look right there, there's the bolt holes, and it looks like they have threads in them, so I'm going to go test them out and run some bolts through them. And we'll just go ahead and bolt this thing on. I'm going to leave the brackets attached to the sway bar and just bolt the brackets up with the sway bar hanging on it. And then we'll just have to do the end links. And I mean, this is going to be pretty easy. It's going to take like probably less than 30 minutes, including filming, which is going to be nice. So, yes, it does in fact have threads there for the sway bar to bolt right into. Same thing on the other side. What's nice about this truck, that little mud flap or whatever water guard, I don't know what you call it, liner, has a gap on the bottom of it for the sway bar to slide into. Whereas the 96 that I pulled the sway bar from, it didn't have a gap on the bottom, so I had to pull the thing out sideways or out the side in order to get it out of the truck. So this would be even easier than removing the Junkyard one, which is awesome. And the threads didn't look that nasty. I'm still going to spray some penetrant in there just so I don't destroy the threads putting it in. But I got the OEM bolts sitting right there. We've got everything here. I got links, got the bar itself. I'm going to get the truck jacked up and try installing it from the bottom, which I couldn't do at the Junkyard because there was still a lot of snow melting all over the ground and it was wet, and I didn't want a wet butt on the way home, like an entire hour drive soaking wet. So I'll get the truck jacked up, we'll get these brackets in and the sway bar mounted up, and then we'll do the end links and we'll go take it for a drive and see what kind of improvement this thing makes. The brackets for the sway bar in, I had to remove them from the sway bar to get them up because otherwise there was just no way I was going to be able to do that, or it was going to end up taking longer than it did to remove them and then do it. But they're up, bolted in, ready to go. Both sides threaded in just fine. And I wanted to show you guys the holes in the control arms as well. Right there. That's the hole that the sway bar link goes into. And then from there you just bolt the sway. You have to bolt the sway bar to the links first and then just raise it up and hook the bushings up. I'm going to get these links put together, get this thing bolted up, and then I don't know if I'm going to do it today or tomorrow, but I'll let you guys know how much better it handles just driving around town and stuff. And then I think that'll be about all I've got for you. The sway bar is totally bolted in. I got the links in up here and then the brackets up here. Everything went together like it's supposed to. It's bolted straight in. All the holes for the brackets were there, and then once you got the brackets in, best way to go about it is to get one of the links in loosely and then go swing the arm around or the sway bar around and get the other link in loosely, and then just lift the front of the bar up and get the two bushings in, crank those down, and then crank those all the way down because those slide and move around. And then if you need to push the bar around a little bit to get the end links around moved or tightened up, it's pretty easy to do it even with the bushings all the way tight. It's not so easy if you get the end links all the way tight at first. I'm going to go drive it, and I think tomorrow after I get back from work, I'll let you guys know how it works, what kind of difference it made, and then, I don't know, next week probably we will get the new bushings in, and I think I might do power steering stuff as well. I'm going to get the truck put back together, drive it, and then, you know, drive it around town a little bit. I got some things to do. I'll drive it to work, I'll drive it back home, and then I'll let you guys know what kind of difference I've noticed just in that brief amount of time. And then maybe when I do the bushings upgrade, I'll let you guys know how much of a real big difference it actually made. And I think I'll probably end the video there. It is the next day, and I can tell you guys without a doubt that the new sway bar made a huge difference in handling ability. There's obviously less body roll and the truck's a lot more stable, but the most significant difference I've noticed is that when I steer, it's a lot quicker to react. The reaction time is way quicker. When I steer, the truck goes where I point it to where I tell it to go immediately, whereas before you would steer, or you would give steering input, and then it would have a second and the body would kind of hesitate, and then it would go. That's because of the body roll kicking in. So huge difference, well worth like the $25 in like 30 minutes it took to install. And hopefully once I get some bushings and stuff in for it and upgrade to all polyurethane stuff, it'll be even better, which will be nice. The bushings on the two big bushings are very sloppy. They aren't in the best of shape, but they work. They made a huge difference. Of course, the new end links work like they should as well. Everything's super dialed, and I've actually got the truck kind of torn apart. I got like the cowl and stuff sitting down here because I had replaced the wiper linkage bushing. So I was driving home, and as you might be able to hear, it's actually freezing rain coming down. You might be able to hear a little bit of it. But this is the linkage bushing. This attaches to the little pitman arm that's on the back of your wiper motor. And I guess they rot, dry out, and break when they get old. There's supposed to be like a cap on this. So your linkage, the one that runs from the motor over, goes on the outside of this, and then the arm for the motor goes on the inside of it. So I was just driving, and all my wipers went up, and there was a little thud, and then the wipers didn't go back down. So I was kind of worried because I didn't think that would be a common part, but I went to AutoZone, and you have to buy like this little box of like, it's like an assortment. It's like $4 just for the entire box though, so it's not that bad. And there is an extra, there is a second bushing in here. Actually, I might have pulled it out because I wanted to show it to you guys. But it looks like this is supposed to look like, basically. And maybe I threw it out, honestly. I don't know. It's here somewhere, but it's not that big of a deal. So I had to tear the whole cowl apart, as you can see, to get to it. But wipers work. After I pulled it apart, the wipers didn't work at first, and I either didn't have the ground attached right, like it wasn't going to go to connection, or the plug needed cleaned out for it. So I cleaned the plug, cleaned the ground, everything's good. The wipers ground off a little metal tab on the bottom bolt, or bottom stud that runs to it, just in case you were curious or have an issue putting it back together. If your truck's as dirty and gross as mine, you might. So wipers are working again, that's important, especially with the way the weather is right now. And huge improvement to the handling. It's a lot better. I haven't like taken it on the highway yet or anything like that, but I'm curious to see how much more stable it is on highway, if there's like slight bends or anything. Because the thing, when I would go drive on the way I go to the junkyard, it gets a little sloppy going around some of the bendier parts as I'm headed up. So this will be a lot better. I've also been playing around with the adjustment on the kickdown cable as well, trying to make the thing shift around 5,000 RPMs. Red line's at like 5,200 on these trucks. I'm trying to get it to shift right before that mark, but these trucks are not meant for what I'm trying to do to it. And the way the linkage is set up for the transmission is set up pretty mildly. The cable does not travel enough when I give it throttle input to really trigger the transmission to shift when I want it to for my purpose. So I'm probably going to get a second throttle body and modify the linkage for the linkage that attaches to the transmission cable, and see if I can get it to shift normally when it's not getting a lot of throttle input, but shift much later when it's, you know, wide open throttle basically. But that'll be for a later date. But I was messing with it. I got it sitting about where I wanted to. The thing was shifting way too early just for normal driving, even made highway driving and just in town and everything really difficult. The thing would never kick down and downshift for me. So I'm going to make new linkage for it, cut whatever, get a new throttle body, cut it up, weld it, make it more aggressive so that when I give it throttle input, it downshifts like it's supposed to, and when it's at wide open throttle, it revs all the way out to at least 5 grand, and that way when the thing's turbocharged, it will behave like I want it to. Because I'm stuck with the automatic, I'm going to make the best of what I got, and hopefully this transmission will hold up for me as well, but we'll see. But that's it. That's cheap OEM, basically stock part, bolted it right on, Swaybar, and definitely worth the trouble. And like I said, it's like $20, $25 for a Junkyard Swaybar. I had to buy end links for it, so like $30 in. Huge improvement over on your suspension. It's about the best upgrade. If your truck doesn't have one already, that's about the best upgrade you'll be able to do to your handling right there. Don't mess with springs or anything. Do Swaybar first. It's definitely worth it. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. this video. Hope some of you have found it helpful, and I'll see you guys later.